critical time in our history. You know, community action's been around for 55 years. And, you know, we've always stood where we stand between grassroots voices and community voices and systems. And to stand in that position, especially in times like today, really enforces and highlights the responsibility that we hold. The voices of our community are sacred, and we hold them in that way. And the systems and the networks that we belong to are sacred. And we have the door open to help lead conversations like this that will lead to systemic change. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement is critically important, and it isn't exclusive of the pro-immigrants movement. It's in partnership. We stand in solidarity with our Black community, not just locally, nationally. Community action nationally stands in solidarity. And we understand the importance of the pro-immigrant movement within this conversation. It is together that we are going to make and continue to make changes. And so with that, I want to thank you for your place in the conversation of thriving immigrants in today's realities. I want to thank you for your place in this conversation around COVID-19 response, and welcome your voices, and welcome your energy, and welcome your commitments, and welcome your values to this conversation. I'd like to bring on my friend, and there you are, Randy Morris, to help me welcome and kick off our conversation.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Am I coming through? Okay, good morning, everyone. And Maria Elena, it's an honor to have you ask me as an ally to share in the welcome remarks. For those who haven't met me, I'm the Human Service Director, and I literally sit in the office of the very big shoes of Ellen Timberlake, who was my predecessor, and I started this position on February 3rd. And for those who don't know her, she has been and remains a fierce advocate of justice and particularly immigrant rights, and was a big partner to this effort and a funder of it. And for those who did not attend the Thriving Immigrant Collaborative that was held on February 21st, before so many things has changed, Maria Elena had reached out to me, perhaps, because of the work of my predecessor, hoping I would carry it on, to be honored to give some welcoming remarks. And in conversation in advance of this meeting, Elena and I spoke briefly and thought it would be helpful to connect some dots, because that was a very inspiring event for me as a new director and a new member of this community. And I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts and hope this feels relevant to everyone. Just to name what's happened since February 21st, when that convening occurred, 3 profound things, any one of which would have turned everything upside down and caused a lot of stress, have happened. COVID, right after that convening, we started having conversations about what meetings to cancel in March, and then the shelter-in-place order and everything that has played out from there. This, of course, has led to the economic recession. And just to remind people, data that we're tracking here in Santa Cruz County in partnership with state unemployment, was our partnership with EDD. In a 3-week period, end of March and early April, we had 18,000 unemployment claims filed by Santa Cruz residents, compared to a year prior, which was in the hundreds. And then just to put the elephant on the table, which I think is very important to talk about what's happening today and was talked about on February 21st, that is on May 25th that George Floyd was murdered, which reignited the Black Lives Matter movement. And I just want to connect a dot to my memory of what happened at the February 21st convening. And I don't see if Paulina Moreno is on the call, the project coordinator, but Paulina, if you're there, apologies in advance, I'm going to name you. Because for those who weren't at the convening, it was a very thoughtful day. It was very well organized. It was very inspiring. There was a lot of tears, a lot of hard discussion. And it ended with Paulina summarizing what the breakout sessions had brought forward as action steps and how to move forward. And what I remember sitting in the audience, getting myself oriented to this discussion, is as we went through the action list of items, Paulina turned to the list and looked out to the audience and said, we cannot make meaningful progress on anything here unless we have a conversation in this community about structural racism. So Paulina, I recognize your leadership in naming that. Sad to think your insights would become so alive and relevant today, but I just would like to end with the way I welcomed people at the convening last time. I'm quite aware of the privilege that we hold in the County Human Service Department. We're a very large organization. We have 500 employees, $150 million budget, and we serve 1 in 3 residents in the community, which is about 100,000 people almost. And as I said at the welcome remarks, I understand as an ally to Maria Elena and DeKalb and to this community, I'm white and male, and that's a factor. So we are here to be an ally. We in HSD are here to listen, and I don't even need you to ask me that question that you sent out in the agenda. In 3 weeks, are we going to work with you? Maria Elena won't let me off the hook. We are your ally, and we look forward to continued conversations. And again, thank you, Maria Elena, for the opportunity to say some welcome remarks.
Thank you for being with us, Randy. I want to acknowledge everyone who is on the call, but in particular, our CAB board members. If you're a CAB board member, raise your hand and say hello so that people know who you are. Thank you for that. And I'd like to acknowledge also who is on the call this morning. We have a variety of electeds representing every single one of our jurisdictions. And that I want to thank you for logging on and spending time to help us have this very important conversation. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hannah, who will move us forward. And I'm muting myself.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hannah Rodgers. For those of you who don't know me, I work on CAB's Thriving Immigrants project. I'm just going to provide a couple reminders about Zoom. This meeting is being recorded, so please note that. We've asked everyone to stay muted until the section at the end that will be dedicated to community discussion and question. If you do have any suggestions for TIC, any questions for TIC, any technical difficulties, please feel free to type those into the chat box throughout and we will address them as needed. Great. And then I just wanted to give a little bit of a review of our agenda. Ruben, would you mind posting our PowerPoint back up? Thank you very much. Fantastic. Can you go a couple slides forward to the agenda? Thank you. All right, so I just wanted to give a little background on just make sure everyone knows who Thriving Immigrants Collaborative is. We'll introduce our top 3 advocacy priorities that were generated, as Randy Morris mentioned, at the Immigration Convergence in February, as well as at our last community-wide conversation on immigrant. We'll turn it over to engage with our elected officials and other county leaders on the call to hear their thoughts, to hear what's happening in the community already and hear what people are willing to commit to going forward. We'll then, as I mentioned, break out into some separate rooms to try to give people's more space for their voices to be heard, to discuss any reactions, any ideas you might have or ask for clarification. Wonderful. Next slide, please.
And as we're changing slides, I failed to acknowledge someone who is with us today and will be part of the agenda, who has been holding an incredible piece of our work in this community, keeping us healthy and keeping us safe. I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Gail Newell, who is here, our health officer. Thank you, Gail, for making space to join us today. Sorry for the interruption, but I just saw you, Gail, and I needed to give you a shout out.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Yeah, as you can see here, we've got some of our TIC steering committee members who will be speaking this morning, as well as a variety of elected officials and a couple county leaders, as Maria Elena mentioned. Thank you so much for everyone who made the time to join us this morning. Next slide, please. So as you may or may not know, Thriving Immigrants Collaborative, which is, we're in our first couple years, it's led by CAB as an alliance of organizations in Santa Cruz County and the Pajaro Valley. We provide both direct services and advocate with and for immigrants to create a community that's where immigrants are truly welcome to thrive. We also aim to provide accurate and up-to-date information relevant to the immigrant community. This theme will come up a lot as we look into our advocacy priorities. Last month on the 14th, we all connected in our first follow-up conversation to our February immigration convergence, generated some advocacy priorities, and you all got to vote on them. So we'll be presenting those today. Please note that this conversation is the first of many. We will invite you to the next at the very end of the presentation. And I just wanted to mention that as we respond to our community's urgent needs and the glaring inequalities that COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted in our community, it really is Thriving Immigrants Collaborative's responsibility, and all of us who are on this call today as advocates for immigrant justice, to push for systems change at this time that will bring us a little bit closer to TIC's vision of a united, thriving, and equitable community built on our diversity and shared history of migration. Next slide, please. A little bit of background information on TIC. We stand for dignity, justice, and equity. Next slide, please. And if 2020 has taught us anything, you all, it is that anything is possible. The time for real change is now. I think we have a unique opportunity to respond to those needs and to push for structural change. So thank you again so much for joining us in this conversation. We're gonna go ahead and, next slide please, Ruben, move into addressing the first advocacy priority generated by TIC. So we know that even before the COVID pandemic started, access to healthcare without immigration status and accessing accurate information on available services were already top concerns among the immigrant community. So certainly as Santa Cruz County, as we respond to the COVID pandemic and continue to navigate how it is that we can keep our community safe in all of the changing realities of this global crisis, it really comes as no surprise that TIC's first advocacy priority will be health and workplace safety. As you can see, we'll be focusing on increasing coordinated COVID health and safety messaging for work and home intended to reach the immigrant community. We're hoping to coordinate with community leaders, including our county health leaders in public health, to increase South County focused COVID safety messaging, which, as we've seen, is necessary given the disproportional rates of COVID positive cases in South County. We also hope to work with agricultural growers to ensure that the most up-to-date community-facing COVID safety information reaches all workers. But we also want to make sure that there is some efforts already underway with that, but we also want to make sure that these same workers have access to all of the community resources available to them regardless of status. As you all might have seen in the community, specific COVID safety recommendations can vary a lot based on industry, based on work site. So we really do want to make sure that people are clear on what it is that they can do both at work and at home to protect themselves, and also where to go for community resources. And as we've mentioned quite a lot already, we would be remiss if we weren't pushing for structural change at this time. And there's actually some efforts underway at the state level to push for the Health for All bills, which is trying to provide health coverage, Medi-Cal, for all undocumented people. And right now they're focusing on expanding this care for seniors. Thank you so much. I just want to pause and pass it over to Tamara Arellano Mora, from Salud para la Gente, who will be leading us through questions for our county leaders. Thank you, Tamara.
Looks good.
Hello, I see that she's on the call, but perhaps unavailable. Tamara, if you're speaking, you're muted. If you had to step away for a moment, I can certainly try to guide us through these questions. All right.
Hello, sorry, I was been having technical difficulties with Zoom since last night.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much for joining us.
Gracias por su paciencia and for people texting me, letting me know that I am not present with y'all. So thank you very much. Thank you, Hannah, for the presentation and for everyone for being here. This is a really important conversation for all of us. And like we've been mentioning, to really use this momentum to move forward. And bring our ideas and our energies together. Some of the questions that we have regarding health and workplace safety, as you could see on this screen, are what has your office already been doing recently to increase health and or workplace safety for our immigrant community? Do you support these priorities? If yes, what is one tangible way to improve health and workplace safety for immigrants here in the Central Coast that you and your office can commit to help move forward in the coming months? Like I said, it's really important to capitalize this momentum right now and go with it. Other questions are, what would you need from us, TIC, to help make that happen? We really want to be there for you all and join our resources and energies to move this forward. And the last one would be, can you commit to meeting with TIC within the weeks to push forward this work? And this could be for any of our elected officials, or if one of these questions really call to you, or any, yeah. And for now, I want to leave it open to anyone in particular, quien sea.
Gracias, Tamara. And I think Gail Newell wanted to kind of start us off, but then we wanted to open it back up. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for your partnership and collegiality as we've moved forward through this difficult time. As several of you have already mentioned today, we've got lots of layers of things happening that make us reassess and reevaluate our work in the community. And so my focus, of course, has been on the COVID-19 pandemic. And I was looking today back to my calendar and seeing that my work on that started on January 15th was my first state meeting around COVID-19. And it feels like I've been on the run ever since. I was able to attend the Thriving Immigrants gathering in February as well, and found it very inspiring. And that, along with my work with the Bay Area Regional Health Inequities Initiative, BARHI, has really prompted me to incorporate equity work into our incident command structure. So our incident command structure, as any of you who have been involved in an emergency operations center or department operations center know, is meant to provide a very rapid response to emergency situations like earthquakes or wildfires or a terrorist attack, but not really built for these sustained, prolonged efforts that COVID-19 is going to require. And it's not a place that, it's not a structure that easily lends itself to hearing voices from our community. It's not at all a democratic system, it's more military-like. And so from the beginning, we've set an objective in our action plan, like right up at the top, it says we're going to use an equity lens in all of our decision making. And I know that those are empty words unless they're followed by action. So we've been working hard at ensuring that we're making places for our voices to be heard. We have a long way to go. One of the things we're considering right now is hiring or including an equity officer into our incident command structure, kind of like a safety officer who takes the 30,000-foot view and is able to give feedback to our structure For example, there's 133 people in our structure in public health, and each department has its own department operations center. So there's hundreds of us involved in this response. So to have eyes on all of us and to be able to give us feedback and call us out where we're failing, to hear the voices of our community and respond appropriately would be important. So we've had some specific ways that we've been working with the immigrant community is that we have an agriculture work group that includes growers, owners, operators, our ag commissioner, and voices from the community, employees who come together along with county staff. And there's also some cross collaboration with Monterey County and some with San Benito as well. Our healthcare leadership, public health leadership, has been meeting weekly now with Monterey County for the past several weeks. And most of our efforts are around serving the immigrant community, whether it's ag, construction, or restaurant workers, ensuring that their needs are being met. And then we're working on messaging with a work group out of the Pajaro Valley, and supported by Save Lives Santa Cruz and the Santa Cruz Community Foundation to do some focused messaging to the South County community around harm reduction techniques for gatherings and other COVID-19 appropriate messaging. So those are just a few of the ways that we're doing this work. And I want to thank my team members from public health and health services agencies for their collaboration on these, and our electeds for their support. Thank you. And of course, I want to continue to collaborate with CAB and the Thriving Immigrants work. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that thoughtful response and for your commitment to, our community, and looking within to see how we can better ourselves in our community. If at all possible, would we be able to hear from some of our different county supervisors, maybe starting with Supervisor Caput and John Leopold? I am so sorry if I said your names and last names not the best way. Thank you.
I'm happy to start if that would be appropriate. This is Supervisor John Leopold. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this meeting and the work that you do around the Thriving Immigrant Collaborative. I'm glad that the county is a partner with this effort, and it's great to see so many people involved with this conversation. One thing that I first want to recognize Dr. Newell for her incredible leadership. She is the architect of the successful strategy that has helped keep transmission of the virus low here in Santa Cruz County, and we are all benefiting from the work that she has done and continues to do to make sure that we can keep our community safe. When the county actually entered into a partnership with the Community Foundation to help with our COVID response, a woman was hired, wow, her name just, Margaret Lapise, was hired, and in part she was hired because of her existing work in South County and her commitment to equity. And she is playing a major role in terms of our Save Lives Santa Cruz County. I share that with you because that's been a priority of the county since the beginning of our COVID response. In the district that I represent in Live Oak, I've been working on a effort that we call Cradle to Career for the past a few years. It's been the main way in which I've been able to work and support immigrants in my district. And when that network that had been formed has proven to be very effective and helpful as we've fallen into this COVID crisis. because we were able to get everybody online and start talking and figuring out what we could do around food support. One of the partners is our health center in Live Oak, the East Cliff Family Health Center, who could provide resources, and then work to connect families with both services and education and technology, so they and their families could continue to thrive while we were all sheltering in place. So that work continues. We just had a meeting yesterday about what the new school year is going to look like and how we can support the families, primarily monolingual Spanish speakers, in this coming school year as we work with the new models of what school is going to look like. I also brought to the board and got the board to support the governor's effort to create a fund for undocumented workers to benefit from some resources because they weren't able to access unemployment and some of the other CARES Act dollars. That I thought was important, and it's part of a statewide commitment that has been made over the last couple of years to try to expand resources for those who are undocumented. And so I strongly support the bills that you listed here about expanding healthcare coverage. And I don't think our board has taken positions on it, but I will commit to you to bring letters to our board to support that legislation in the hopes that it will be passed. I of course am willing and ready and interested in meeting with CAB and talking about what we could be doing, not only in the mid-county, but in all of Santa Cruz County, because all of us, each of us on the Board of Supervisors represents a district, but all of us work for everybody in Santa Cruz. And when we look at at this COVID crisis, it does highlight some of the very things that the entire nation is talking about in terms of inequity. And this disease is hitting communities of color much harder than white communities. And we see that here in Santa Cruz, where over 50% of the cases are Latinx. And so we have an especially important commitment to make sure that we have resources, we do effective health education, and that we can support families that are critical to the community, that are part of our community, and represent the soul of our community. So I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, can you hear me? Greg?
Yes.
Greg. Okay.
Yes, welcome, Greg. We welcome your comments.
Good to see all of you. Yeah. Anyway, yes, SB 29 and AB 4. It says are those two focusing also on the senior community of the undocumented? Okay, and then the other one I'd like to know is, do we have any sense of how many seniors that are undocumented in the county? I know there's a lot of young people that are brought over here with their families, and that's what we call a blended family, where some are documented and some aren't. And then that would also, be true for the actual working class that are coming over here without papers and working. But how many seniors are we really talking about? It would be a smaller number than the young population, and it would also be a smaller number than the working population.
It's a great point, Supervisor Caput. Is there anything that, as representative of Watsonville territory in Santa Cruz County, is there any way, anything that you would be willing to commit to supporting in upcoming months?
Yeah. Go ahead, say that again.
Wanted to see if there were any specific ways that you, as a representative of Watsonville, are able to support this work going forward.
Yeah. Well, I would say that probably at least once a week somebody comes into the office and asks us about something to do with immigration, and we refer them over to CAB. And Doug Keegan is usually the one that works with them. I don't know, is Doug in today? Maria Elena, is Doug in?
Doug is always in, Greg.
Yeah. Tell him hello.
I will do that, and I just want to share that you know, Supervisor Caput has been an ongoing supporter of immigrant services through CAB and for South County, and so we hope that we can continue that relationship, Greg, and having that support for our immigrant community. As you know, we see thousands of immigrants come through our doors on an annual basis. And so I also want to just let you know that I think your question around number of seniors who are undocumented is an important one. It's hard for us to as a community and as a state, get numbers attached to undocumented community members, like how many, right? And there are some people who've attempted to get those numbers, and there's structures that have been created based on those numbers. However, you know, I think that you know, that for the most part, we know that our undocumented community is an invisible one. And so to get exact numbers is always challenging. However, I'd be happy to share with you moving forward what we have learned through one of our projects that we're currently implementing, and that will be highlighted in our next priority. So thank you, Supervisor Caput, for being with us today.
No, thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. I know that every county leader who's on the call today, who we're so grateful that you're willing to join us. I know that you all prepared responses to, you know, all of these priorities. Due to time, we're going to move right along to the next one. I'm going to pass it off to Paulina Moreno, the project director of Thriving Immigrants at CAB, to speak a little bit about our second advocacy priority. Next slide, please. Paulina, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, everyone, for being and joining us this morning on this very critical and important conversation. I'm Paulina Moreno. I'm the project director of the Thriving Immigrants Initiative, the 2020 census, and I'm currently overseeing one of the programs, which is the disaster relief assistance for immigrants. So, you know, I apologize. I've been a little bit absent in the last couple of weeks, but this has really been a great opportunity for us to respond to the need here in Santa Cruz County.
You muted yourself, Paulina.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what I pressed. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Kate. You would think that I'd be more familiar with Zoom by now. But, you know, as many of you know, back in April, the governor announced the $75 million allocated, which is a bold new step that California is really taking to make sure that everyone, regardless of their immigration status, can recover from this pandemic. And so, you know, we are thankful to the governor. We are thankful to the state of California for being bold and inclusive, and yet we know this is not enough. And so we know that these are important conversations and an opportunity for us to explore and further think about what are some steps that we can take to think about local investment, but to also think about advocacy efforts that are happening at the state level that we can be a part of. And so I think I did want to, I just wanted to make sure to update you very briefly on the disaster relief assistance project. You know, we are one of 12 CBOs throughout the state of California that are overseeing this funding. We were tasked with serving 4 counties, Santa Cruz, Monterey, San Benito, and San Luis Obispo. We are, through the funding that was made available to the state, we are able to serve 4,500 individuals in these 4 counties. As you know, this again is not enough. You know, we know from the announcement that the governor made that the funding made available was only going to reach 150,000 undocumented adults. And I'll say this again, 150,000 undocumented adults. We have over 2 million undocumented individuals in the state of California. So you can only imagine this is a drop in the bucket. Again, we are extremely thankful, and you know, this is really, California for me continues to lead the way in terms of these efforts. We are the only state that has created a relief effort such as this one. And yet the DRE program has really amplified what the need is in our community. Thus far, you know, we are 4 weeks into the program. We have been able to process about 26,000 applications. So we are almost halfway there from the 4,500 that we were allocated to provide assistance to in these 4 counties. We continue to ask, you know, participants, applicants to be, you know, patient with us. We have a hotline number that we are answering Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. We are working midnight hours to process applications to make sure that the cards are getting out to families. This is assistance that will, you know, one-time assistance of $500 up to $1,000 per household. And so I just wanted to, you know, make sure that, you know, if you didn't already know that that funding is available, and we continue to receive calls. We have 18 amazing people answering the hotline, temporary staff that have joined CAB to be part of this effort. And I can assure you that they are culturally sensitive, they are patient, and they're working very, very hard to, you know, attend to the needs of the community. But I wanted to, again, focus on the importance that, you know, I want to make sure that I highlight that, you know, this disaster relief assistance money is not a giveaway. This disaster relief assistance money is an investment in our workforce. And I think that's a very important point that we need to continue to drive as we think about these policies that we need to advocate and implement in our local, in our work, as we continue to think about how do we recover from this pandemic, right? As we begin to think about how California will recover, it needs to be inclusive of all of its workers, including the 1 in 10 who are undocumented. So I think as we were outlining some of the priorities, that the main 2 ones that have come up, which I believe are on the screen, are around the being supportive of the Cal EITC project, and then also thinking about county funded emergency relief assistance for undocumented individuals. If you don't know what the California Earned Income Tax Credit is, it's you know, it's a refundable state tax credit that helps people who earn little from their jobs pay for necessities for their families. So workers receiving the Cal EITC and California's Young Child Tax Credit, you know, have seen their income significantly increase. And I'm going to give you an example. So a mother of 2 children, ages 4 and 7, who works part-time at California's minimum wage, earning $12,000 annually, can receive $1,222 from the Cal EITC, $1,000 from the Young Child Tax Credit, plus another $6,225 through refundable federal tax credit. This boosts a family's income up to 70%. And yet, what continues to happen is that immigrant families who file taxes with an ITIN perpetually get excluded from this benefit, causing them to be, you know, unable to get out of poverty. And I wanted to share very quickly, that immigrant tax filers contribute 3.2 billion in state and local taxes every single year. And they represent over a third of our workforce, and yet continue to be excluded from any of these credits. And so a critical next step for us as we think about what are some state policies is the need to be inclusive of immigrant families within these state initiatives. And so, I think we're gonna have a greater conversation about what this means, but policymakers really do have an opportunity to make these credits inclusive of immigrant families who pay taxes, earn very little from their jobs, and experience significant economic disparities in our communities. And so I want us to think about that as we, continue to expand on these conversations. I think the other thing that we wanted to make sure to highlight was the need to invest locally, right? Again, it's an investment, it's not a giveaway. And so what does it mean to establish county-funded emergency relief assistance for people regardless of their immigration status? We know that there have been, local efforts of organizations really helping us lead the way. There are Undocumented, of which CAB is a part of, and many of the partners in this call this morning are also a part of. And we know that there needs to be some institutionalized way for us to continue supporting families, not just in emergencies, but throughout. And so I want to, pass over to our steering committee member, Pastor Susan Berkelo with SEMA, who will be asking some questions to our county leaders about increasing financial resources for undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, thank you, Paulina, for that great introduction to this this particular priority. And we want to also reiterate again, we really appreciate the presence of all you who are elected officials and county leaders with us, because the task we have in front of us is very big, and we will need a large and broad collaboration, not just to get through the pandemic, but to move into a better reality than we actually started from before COVID-19 even began. And so we're counting on everybody's participation in that. And I know we've heard from the some county representatives already, and it might be good maybe as we look at the questions for this one, that we perhaps hear from. I know we do have people here from City of Watsonville and City of Santa Cruz, but is there somebody from one of our cities, from both of our cities that present, that would like to say something about what you've been doing in your work there that has contributed to our goal on this advocacy priority? So for anybody from Watsonville or Santa Cruz City who's like to respond to that first? And
sure, I'll be glad to take a crack at it. Lowell Hurst here. Council's been working hard to revitalize the senior center, and that was in response to Supervisor Caput's concern about what are we doing with seniors and how are we trying to rebuild those programs. Well, everything is really in flux because of COVID and the lack of our ability to assemble folks, but we're trying hard to be as inclusive as we can and make sure that every opportunity and every door is open that can be open. But it is a real struggle with budget cuts and all the restrictions about spacing and placing and congregating together, and that impedes our ability to provide services as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lowell, for that. Somebody else?
This is hi, this is Aurelio Gonzalez, City of Watsonville. I represent District 2. I don't know if you can see me or hear me. But anyways, I think our efforts as a city have been moving forward. We're always supportive of our community, and I like to say it's not my town, but it's our town. We need to systematically start getting rid of that me ideology, but it's an us, and we need to work together. We've directed our city manager to continue to have a conversation with the ag industry and educating our farm workers. We've even gone out and done some fundraising for our farm workers and the most needs, hooked up with Ana Lopez and helping distribute necessities for our farm workers. And I think this is an important topic overall. We try to be inclusive to everybody within our city limits and support them as much as possible. Right now, our biggest dilemma I think we face as a city is given once things open up, the opportunity for our youth to be able to go and exercise. I think that's an important part of this structure because we do have, as it is, when they're undocumented, they have a fear of leaving their house. Now with the pandemic and everything else that's added to it, it's just multiplying it. And I think we need to really focus on how we can get resources out to them and the opportunities. As it is, when there is shorts of funding, and it is cost exhibited for our community to be able to participate sometimes in some of these recreational opportunities for our youth, we need to figure out how we can get those opportunities out there. And I'm willing to continue to work on that as a city representative. And also, you know, I'm always working at trying to help the community the best I can and getting the resources out that we have as a city, even though they're limited. We strive for that.
Thank you very much. And I know we want to hear from Mayor Cummings, and then I think after him, Supervisor Caput had something he wanted to add also. So Mayor Cummings, welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and for all the hard work that everyone's doing to help our communities through this really difficult time. I just want to point out a few things that I as mayor have been doing and some of the things that the city council in Santa Cruz has been doing. So very early on, I began meeting with Community Action Board, United We Dream, and the Mexican Consulate, just to kind of get a sense of, from the nonprofit side, what services and resources were available, how are the Latino communities being impacted, and then trying to figure out how the city could help. From the city's perspective, on May 12th, we approved and we continue to provide resources for CDBG and through our CDBG grants to Nueva Vista and the Beach Flats Community Center. So ensuring that the nonprofits that are doing work with our Latino communities, that we're continuing to provide them with funding. We also approved home funds from the TBRA eviction protection program. We provided $200,000 to Community Action Board for that. And you know, one thing that I think is really important that many of our communities have been doing is that we've been trying to provide eviction protections from tenants during these very difficult times. We know that many undocumented families are not eligible for many of the unemployment or other stimulus package funds that are coming through. And just yesterday, I met with some folks from COPA, some members of the Latino community, and some of the members of our faith community. And the stories that I was hearing from them was that, you know, some of these people have been out of work since the middle of March, and the limited amount of work that they've been able to get is maybe, you know, 4 to 5 hours a week. And these are individuals who have children, and they're trying to figure out ways to support their families. But, you know, the funding isn't there. And one thing that they're really afraid of is that as we continue to reopen, that there's not going to be a grace period for folks to pay back rent. It's going to be really difficult for many of these families to be able to come up with the money from their previous rent, and many are afraid of being evicted. So I think it's really important that we continue to provide the necessary protections that these families need as they're trying to recover from COVID-19, and that we really hear their voices and make sure that we're providing as many resources as we can to keep them in their homes and able to provide for their families.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Also, I'd just like to pass, I know that Supervisor Caput has a word, and then also after him, Vice Mayor Donna Myers would also like to say something.
Okay, this is Greg Caput, and then I would like to say, yeah, with Relio Gonzalez and Lowell Hurst and the City Council, they're doing a lot in the community, and so is the county. I think the biggest thing that we've worked on, and I think just as a community as a whole, there is a fear factor of people that are undocumented to come forward and to try to actually get help. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. And I think in Watsonville, with the police department, public safety, the fire department, and all that, I think they've done a wonderful job of being a part of the community. And we could see that when we passed this past February or March, we had an election on Measure Y, and it was passed by almost 75% of the people in Watsonville for a sales tax. Money is a big problem for the county right now, and it's a big problem for the city of Watsonville. And so the economic resources that we were counting on in the past, we don't have that right now. But hopefully, when our economy starts to recover and move forward, we'll be able to, put some resources in the areas that we need to enhance, like the senior center here in Watsonville. The city of Watsonville is actually going to run it now. And I think it'll be a big asset to the community. So
thank you very much, Supervisor Caput. Appreciate that addition too. And I know we're going to have to move on our agenda, but I'd just like to give maybe the last word here, a brief word to Vice Mayor Donna Myers before we move on to our next priority.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit on to some of the programs we've been doing as a city. We've also been trying to also keep track of utility bill relief. That's another very expensive part for families. And so all of our utilities, garbage, sewer, and water, there are relief programs, and basically for just foregoing those bills right now. So if anyone needs help with some of those costs, which can be quite a lot, please send them our way. We have an entire department that's ready to help people with that type of application. Also, just longer term, the City Council just passed on Tuesday night we're establishing a recovery and an internal recovery process and plan that the mayor, myself, and Councilmember Martine Watkins will lead as a subcommittee of the council. And certainly the work that you're doing, especially this this particular goal, is something we would love to coordinate and discuss with you. So we'll reach out certainly on that. That's looking at both immediate 6-month planning, but actually longer 18-month planning. And then lastly, our economic development department is trying to stay ahead of the anticipated orders and providing as much information and assistance to local businesses prior to governor's orders. So we did just complete all of our restaurant reopening information. We have packets for businesses. So any businesses that need assistance, they can contact our economic development department, and we can get them up and opening their businesses as quickly as possible. So we're happy to help in any way that way as well. So thank you for your work on this. This is a place I think we can really help and would love to focus with you. Thanks for your work.
Thank you too for that contribution. Yes, we will look forward to being able to collaborate on this. That's really a good thing to look forward to for us too. I think we need to move on to our third priority right now for advocacy, and I think that will be presented to us now by our collaborative member, Paz Padilla.
Yes, thank you, Susan, for that. Good morning, buenos dias a todos. I hope you're all doing really good. Thank you for joining in this really important conversation. Housing, a very important topic that we're in the midst of really hearing the stories of our tenants and landlords at the same time. During this epidemic, as you know, we here in CAB have been seeing an increase in calls, over 50% of calls of people from our community in rent. And this has to do with a lot of issues. It has to do because either their hours were cut, either their businesses were closed, children needing to stay home and lack of childcare, owners, business owners not having the ability to go to work. So we're just seeing a mist of different stories. So as we know, here in the county, we are the second highest rate of poverty in California, not only when you compare this with regional cost of living and income. I think in order for us to thrive, we must really take housing availability and housing safety into account for our leaders and plan something out to keep Santa Cruz County safe and healthy for all of our coming months and the months to come. While there's many ways to address the housing crisis in our county, I think one of the issues that TIC can go ahead and focus with is increase the housing safety and renters protections through Know Your Rights messaging campaigns on tenants' rights, including undocumented people, and through homeowners' education on responsibilities and best practice to keep tenants safe. Again, one of the things as being the Housing Prevention and Intervention Director for CAB, I've been noticing throughout the past 3 months, there is a lack of information between the tenants and the landlords, especially with the eviction moratoriums. What are the rights? What do they need to do? What were their actions from both ends? Tenants not understanding the eviction notice, and the landlords, especially the low literate landlords, not understanding what really the law says in regards to the moratorium. So I think this is the right moment to really have and engage our community, our leaders, to really advocate for both, either the tenants or the landlords, so they can come together and work together so we can thrive and be a better community. For the same reason, there's often more focus on educating tenants about their rights, which is wonderful, but I think we are lacking some education when it comes to the landlords. And I guess I really want to focus those landlords that really do not understand how to read or understand our English. That's been a struggle when you have a tenant and a landlord not understanding really what is the law when it comes to housing. So I think TIC will focus this message for coming together, and educating is a really important part that TIC can go ahead and provide for our community. I will now pass it on to TIC steering member Henry Martin with the Watsonville Law and Salud para la Gente to ask questions to our county leaders.
Thank you so much, Paz. Something came up. I will be jumping in for Henry. So, yeah, thank you so much for introducing our housing priority. I'd love to turn it over to, let's see, we've heard from a number of people from both cities. I don't believe we've heard from Rebecca Garcia yet. Or Francisco Estrada from City of Watsonville. If either of you two feel comfortable answering a little bit about what City of Watsonville has already been doing to improve housing for immigrants, as well as, again, tangible ways we can move these ideas forward together. Give a few moments for people to join, and if not, we would welcome any other input from, we've got, again, our County Human Services Department. I don't know if you all are doing anything in way of improving housing for immigrants, but anyone willing to step up and oh.
This is John Leopold. I'm happy to just say some of the things that the county is doing, and I support the efforts of these education campaigns, especially for tenants to know their rights, and if there are issues with landlords who don't understand, that's a great program as well. The county has been looking creatively about how to use our properties to build affordable housing. In November, we approved 57 units of affordable housing on Capitola Road in a joint project with East Cliff Family Health Center, the Santa Cruz Community Health Center, and Dientes Dental Clinic. And those 57 units are for low and very low income. And we had a lot of support from Live Oak families, especially immigrant families, because we dedicated a portion of those to Live Oak families, and Live Oak Elementary is a block away, where 85% of the kids are on free or reduced lunch. So it's incredibly important that this resource be available for them. So we hope that they will break ground either late this year or early 2021, so we can get that up and running, as well as the new healthcare opportunities. We are also in the process of finishing the environmental documents to look about increased densities along our transit corridors. Think of that as Soquel Drive and some other roads. And we see that as an opportunity to build a lot more housing, a diversity of housing that our community really desperately needs. And we're hoping that this, the economic slowdown whatever happens because of COVID doesn't stop this march towards housing. It's a big struggle to know what that's going to look like. Finally, we're also looking at using other county property in both the city of Santa Cruz and the city of Watsonville to build housing. And we're in the process of doing a consultation with facility consultants to figure out how to best use those properties. And we hope that we will have programs coming to us or suggestions coming to us later on this year.
If I could say something, this is Greg Caput. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think what we've seen with the county is we're seeing other areas of the county doing their share. I know in John Leopold's area with low-income housing, and you also have in the Santa Cruz Live Oak area a senior low-income housing project that was has been worked on, and that's been a big help. My big thing in the past was that we in Watsonville in District 4 basically at one time were doing almost all 90% or almost all of the low-income housing for the county. That's not true anymore. Right now in District 2, I believe that's the Aptos area, they've had a lot of low-income housing projects that have been built, and of course here in Watsonville we have Shapiro Knolls, we have the area off Atkinson where we put in a lot of low-income housing. The other thing that's been really wonderful with the city of Watsonville too, and the county, that we're actually building homes for true low-income families. There was a time when a lot of the housing that was being built was for moderate income housing, and the moderate income is over $100-something thousand a year. So that was not really helping the poor communities as much as we intended to help. And now almost all the housing that's being built, most of it is being built for true low-income families that are struggling to work here, stay here, and live here. And by the way, all their kids that go to school here in the Watsonville area, our public schools are full. They're doing a great job here. We have a very diverse community as far as age. We have a very young population in District 4. You can see the kids everywhere. And, you know, we're working on a lot of things, also parks for kids to be able to go out and run and play and not have to walk all the way across town to find an open park. That actually, if the schools would cooperate and open up their playgrounds and everything like that, that we wouldn't have kids walking past, you know, areas where they can actually play, but they're locked out because the schools are locked up. So anyway, yeah, we're getting there. We have a strong cooperation with the county, and the city of Watsonville is working real hard. I know there's that project over 100 low-income housing. That's been put on hold because of the funding of the developer is not coming through. I think maybe Lowell or Aurelio might have the answer on that. But anyway, that was going to be over 100 low-income homes that were going to be built.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Caput, for it can be a little disheartening when thinking about housing in our community to have real hope. So it's encouraging to know that there's more affordable housing programs underway. I really appreciate the support from South. We are running a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to move us right along to our community conversations section. Next slide, please, Ruben. You will be automatically placed into a breakout session right now. We will have about 10 minutes to discuss those 4 breakout sessions, so hopefully people will have enough space to be heard. The questions on the screen, this is what we'll be addressing. Anything that's burning, anything that's super alive for you right now, strong reactions, exciting ideas, any deep questions that might have arisen out of today's conversation. If you have any follow-up questions for any of the county leaders, for TIC, for each other, or if you have any additional ideas for tangible action steps in the pro-immigrant movement, this would be the time and space to share that. So Ruben, if you wouldn't mind launching our breakout sessions, you should be automatically placed into one at random. Let us know if you need any support. You can call on our host for tech support. Should be launching in just a few minutes. You might need to click join when prompted on the
Are you guys able to see the join for your breakout sessions? Rachel, can you see the invitation to join the breakout session? Does anybody else need help with the invitation to join? Hi, Greg, do you need help joining?
lost everybody.
Breakout session.
All right. I hope those were fruitful breakout sessions, a little shorter than desired, but thanks for all of your participation and glad to see your faces back on the call here. Ruben, if you could launch the slideshow again, that would be wonderful. Thanks again. I know we're pretty much out of time at our meeting. We just wanted to just close it out. Next slide, please. And make sure that you had access to our next community conversations. Next week, we'll be hosting one in the evening that will be in English and Spanish on immigrant access to benefits and resources. This will be very similar to the one that we did a few weeks ago. Please spread the word. This is intended for general community to come and figure out, get clarity on what benefits they qualify for and whether or not that may impact immigration status. Likewise, on Thursday, June 25th, we will be having a follow-up conversation on immigrant advocacy, this time with Assemblymember Robert Rivas. He will be sharing, we'll be collaborating with him to figure out how our community can support his efforts to pass legislation that protects farm workers and other rural communities throughout the state. So thank you. I will pass it off to Maria Elena and our CAB board member to close us out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Hannah. I just want to thank everyone for participating. In the beginning, in the next level of conversation, I want to remind our electeds that we will be knocking on your doors in the next 3 weeks to have follow-up strategy conversations, not just our electeds, but also our county partners, so we can begin to make action steps real and possible to move through some of the highlights of today's conversation. I'm going to invite Rachel Ellis, and Rachel, I don't see you, but I know you're here, as our CAB co-chair to close us up. And I just want to say that CAB has taken some bold moves in ensuring that we reflect the community that we serve. And one of those practices has been that the board will always have 2 co-chairs to the board, and one of those co-chairs will be a person of color representing the clients that we serve. Rachel represents the low-income seat for the city of Watsonville, and so I invite her as a CAB co-chair to close this event down.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilena. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. I look forward to seeing you all at the next TIC, collaborative. So one great quote was John F. Kennedy said, "Everywhere immigrants have enriched and strengthened the fabric of American life." And so with that said, if all of you guys have joined us last February, or this February actually, you'll know that it is in our hands still. However, we are doing social distancing with our hands, but we have the capability of adapting today and strengthening our community with collaboration. So thank you for everybody from the Second Harvest Food Bank to the elected officials, to members of the community, and to all of CAB for what you guys do every day on helping us with these issues and stepping it up for us. You truly are a force of nature, and I deeply appreciate you for creating change and continuing to be the voice of our community. So we'll see you next time. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. We remind you to keep safe, to be well, and we will be continuing to create this force that we call Thriving Immigrants Collaborative. Muchísimas gracias. Have a safe day.
Thank you, Mary Elena.
Thank you all.
Yes, you know.
Hi, Susan and Adriana. I guess maybe it wasn't clear that we were going to try to be doing this little feedback session, but Susan, I thought that was a fantastic idea because you're right. Oftentimes we forget. We don't ask for feedback till so much later that it's just not fresh in our minds. So yeah, you know, I always think we can do better, but I think it went pretty well. What was your experience with it?
I thought we got a lot of information out there. I thought we had good participation. I thought that that it's the beginning of some better collaborations, and I think the people who were there, my impression is the people who were there would come back for another one. But that's the true key as to how effective it was, if people found it useful enough to continue to participate. But I got the impression that they did, and I was glad we had both from the county and the cities. That was good too. And given the fact it's Zoom, yes, it went pretty well.
I think it went well. Overall, I think it was perfect. Our breakout session, I thought it went really fast. But overall, I think everybody, mostly everybody participated and got the opportunity to ask questions and, you know, just hear everybody out. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
It's been forever. Pastor Susan, it looks like you're in some magical garden. Is that a background or is that really a
It's my home. Actually, it's my front porch, but it's also virtual. You can tell that this is the key. I took a picture of it a couple of months ago when the wisteria was blooming, because I like the wisteria, and so now I use it for a virtual background. So I am at home, and this is my front porch. It's just a little date lag from when it looked like this.
Ah, nice. I think it went well.
Yeah. I took a lot. Was somebody going to be taking notes during the breakout session, or was I going to be doing both? It's like, yeah.
Supposedly Ruben was going to support. No, Isai.
Oh yeah, he was there.
Perfect, good. Yeah, I have mixed, I think it went well ultimately. I think some of the concerns going into it were, you know, basically if politicians were going to say something that they're not going to follow through with, right? Some of the concern prior was, oh, is this just going to be kind of wasted breath? And I wish that we could have gotten a little bit more I wish we could have targeted them a little bit more. That's a bad word for it, but you know, in terms of, okay, yes, and how will you join? How will you join? Because oftentimes it gets really generic. I also wish that we could have heard from some of the other elected officials. There were a couple who just didn't get to speak. And then at the same time, I wish there was somehow more time for community discussion.
You know, there might be a need for some follow-up on some of that too, because I actually have a hard time sometimes listening to what people are saying carefully when I'm facilitating, because I'm so conscious of facilitating that I don't maintain all the information that I'm hearing. So I think that for a lot of people, getting this information out was important, and it's almost like the next step would be to go into greater depth, or the whole question of how to you know, how TIC can work with them. I mean, we didn't really get into that, but I think people are more concentrating on getting information out, sharing information, which I'm obviously not going to remember all of it because I was too busy thinking of my next step. But I'm trusting that you have this recorded and that you will cull from it the important information that we all need to have. And maybe whatever follow-up we have from this meeting will be a setup for a different kind of next meeting in which we can go a step beyond where we went today. And to what you're saying, Hannah, about the connected and accountability thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Susan. Really quick, I can see there's still an elected official on the call, and I've tried to remove them. And for some reason, it's not, I don't know if y'all down
yeah,
to
let me Rebecca, are you on the line? Mayor Rebecca? She may not, she may have just, left the meeting and left her information on, but can I give some thoughts, or can I make a request from this group?
Yeah.
I would invite us to send an email with feedback in a certain style, and those of you who are LCT graduates will recognize it. It's to increase, to retain, and to decrease. And I can send the format on that structure. What can we increase? What can we retain? And what we can decrease in terms of how we felt it went. I think that there's lessons to learn in this really important conversation. I also see, there's some really important skill set that some of us put in play that was really important to use today. And I think that we do have a commitment for following up from all our electeds and our county leadership. So did we get close to the vision of this meeting? I absolutely think so. I think we gave space, and so I will set out that feedback structure and invite everyone to do it immediately, because we'll lose nuances if we wait a couple of days. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that I'm taking away today from this meeting is that even though, and we know this, Watsonville, Santa Cruz, Monterey, Pájaro, we're so close together. We're so different. And like, I'm very, very pleased to hear how Santa Cruz is moving forward to support our the immigrant community and all the different things they put in place. And they're pushing, forward their development of those affordable units for their community members. And I think it's great that they're going ahead and doing all this stuff, and with everything that's still with the pandemic, they still are, pushing all their efforts forward. And I was very glad and pleased to hear that from the mayor of Santa Cruz. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing your feedback, you guys. It's always super important to hear from you all about how we can try to improve it for next time. Heads up, we are going to be trying to upgrade our Zoom account so that we can do the live interpretation thing for future stations. I had sent out an email, I think last night or this morning, to you all with that update, that heads up that we're going to try to schedule that next conversation on resources and benefits next Thursday evening. So I'll send out reminders, but it doesn't have to be you guys physically present. If I know last time, were you there last time, Adriana, I think? Anyways, if you guys want to send like a representative, and it's just would be like 2 minutes presenting on, resources, that'd be great. But I'll follow up with you guys. And if you know of any interpreters that do low cost interpretation or volunteering or anything, please send them my way, because we'll be looking for some for next week.
Yeah, I can send you a name. I'll ask him, and then I'll send you his information.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Adriana.
Okay.
Well, I'll either through me or through Marilena, we'll send that little feedback request to all of TIC.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a great
everyone.
rest of your day.
Thanks very much. Thanks for all your preparation for this too. That helped. The written stuff really helped.
Yeah, thank you.
And the list of participants helped. I mean, as a facilitator for the group, it was really important to have that, I think, for it to move smoothly.
Yeah.
Glad that was helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.